Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guild House. This is a weekly podcast where I, your host, Matthew Whitby, sit down with amazing people all across the DMs Guild and surrounding space. And this evening, I'm overjoyed to be joined by Leon Barillaro. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm great today. A little hot, but otherwise can't complain.
Yeah, no, I think in the UK wise, the current heat, well, we say heat wave again for everyone else, like heat wave is like, I think like 32 degrees and we just cease to function. But there's been storms all over the UK that I just haven't been getting, and I do love a good storm.
Yeah, we've been getting a couple because I'm right on the coast, and those are the best days when the temperature just breaks for at least 20 minutes and the rain comes. So we get one of those soon.
Fair. So I must admit, you probably didn't expect to come on and chat about the weather. So I think to steer us on topic a little bit. So for those listening who might not know of some of the products you kind of throw out there, what sort of thing are you known for?
So probably the first couple of things that I did are probably my most well-known. I was the editor, a designer, and the playtesting manager on the Book of House. I have an adventure in the Uncaged Anthology, Volume 2. More recently, I've been on a lot of other anthology projects, the Book of Seasons. I have an adventure there, and I edited for that. Table for Two, which is a duet adventure that, or a duet anthology that by the time this podcast comes out will be out on the DMsGuild. It's that new. I have an adventure there. Yeah, I'm the adventure guy. I read adventures.
Yeah. No, I mean, for one adventure right to another, it's a little bit addictive. So interesting. I'm gonna pick up. I noticed you mentioned for Book of House. You mentioned that you were the playtest manager. I'm curious. So what exactly did that entail? Was it just literally just gathering groups or?
Yeah, so probably about 8 or 9 months into the process of writing content for the Book of House, Willie and I realized that we had play tested about 10% of it. And we didn't really want to prolong submitting the material to the DMsGuild much more than we had to because we'd been working on it a long time. So I assembled a team of extraordinary gamers. And oh man, I definitely was the image of that It's Always Sunny skit where he's there in the mailroom. Mine, like, okay, so like on Tuesdays you're gonna run games and on Wednesdays I'm gonna run games. But we developed a feedback form. We developed, we're both scientists, so we kind of ran it like experiments where we had control variables, and we were kind of. I mean, you're supposed to do it that way, so I don't know why I'm making fun of it. But we're super nerds about like making sure that the data we were getting was important. And I spearheaded that. I found the people, I organized the events, I calculated availabilities, passed out the feedback form, collated the results, all that stuff.
So I guess, so in my kind of the experience that I've kind of done so far, I've been very much like I've kind of searched for DMs and then kind of gone about it that way. So it sounds like you kind of tried to gather the entire party.
Yeah, it's after that, because I know that Willie, when Willie and I work together, he does a lot of the design work and then I do a lot of the editing work. And then we both kind of do the same. But he, for a lot of the stuff that we're working on now, he's been reaching out to other people and asking them to play test, so we don't have to do all of it ourselves.
Yeah.
It was just like we had to crunch if we wanted to fit our schedule for the Book of House, so that's why it happened that way.
No, I get it. Yeah, I do like the idea of tackling playtesting like an experiment, because I guess it kind of is in its own sort of like special way. What were some of the I'd like to kind of peek behind the curtain. Like, what were some of the interesting sort of feedback that you kind of took on and then sort of shaped the product a little bit?
It's been a long time. So
oh yeah, sorry.
You have an interesting piece of feedback about the playtesting process.
Oh no,
that I got from playtesting, and it was that. I'm a very storytelling-oriented game master, very storytelling-oriented game designer, and Willie is very much the crunchy guy out of the both of us. So a lot of the Book of House stuff was crunch-related. A lot of numbers heavy, a lot of really cool abilities that are written down for you, roll tables. Two in particular is the Culinary Bard and the Rogue Merchant. And one of the things that I did was I wanted to make sure that, because a lot of these abilities were combat centric, that we were running like dungeon delves, super intricate combat, to make sure that everybody had a chance to use the abilities and everybody felt like they needed to use the abilities that we were trying to play test, not just like, I'm going to use this because I'm supposed to now, but like the moment presented itself, so on and so forth. But the Bard and the Merchant are very charisma heavy based classes, and a lot of their abilities, especially the Merchant, they get power-ups the more that they sell things. They get power-ups the more gold they acquire. And it was just like impossible to playtest that over, because we were running from Tales from the Yawning Portal, which are very much like, go in this dungeon, collect the thing, fight the boss.
Yeah.
And the merchants were like, boy, gee whiz, I sure wish that there was like some goblin in this dungeon I could sell this thing to so that I could use my ability. So I definitely learned a valuable lesson there about, I mean, every DM needs to do this, but a valuable lesson about making sure that everybody has the opportunity to use the things that you want them to use. Like you really got to put it in front of them. And just when we did finally manage to have like a more role play and exploration heavy session, I remember a lot of the abilities that I thought were super crunchy ended up being used for really, really interesting ways.
No, awesome. Yeah, I guess that's also like another interesting like facet of like, I guess, subclass design is literally take these sort of existing like hardcover adventures and just say, let's see how this goes, and then obviously if they can run with the wolves, if that's a good analogy, it's kind of like a good rule of thumb to be like, okay, this is like a fairly balanced class. Interesting. No, that's awesome. Then I guess to sort of like, so was the how long before you released the Book of House had you kind of been releasing out stuff on the DMsGuild?
That was mine and Willie's first DMsGuild thing.
The first foray, and it's a fantastic product, and I think was it it's been a gold seller for a while.
I think it's gold. I should check. I don't know. I think it is. It might be just under gold. It might be Electrum. I'm not sure.
But so and I guess so. What was the particular inspiration for like? So as I take it, it was like a team project then, because it sounds like you and Willie kind of bounce off each other kind of perfectly.
I know that Willie remembers this differently than I do. So you should have him on the show and question as well, because he'll give you the real answer. But my answer is, it was the summer of 2017 and 2017, whatever summer the movie It came out. And Willie's like, I want to go see the movie about the evil clown. And I'm like, I love you. I'm not going to go see that with you. And so I was like at work, and he was texting me. He was like, I took the afternoon off. I'm going to go see the movie before you get home from work. I'm like, good, enjoy. So I just remember like coming home from work after he sees this movie, and I get a text message that says, I'm going to make a clown race for Dungeons and Dragons now. Oh, are you? And I like, to this day, I still can't tell if I'm like Stockholm syndromed into liking clowns, because now like Willie and I are working on more clown stuff. It's gonna come out the Dungeon Masters Guild at some point, and I've got a whole dungeon prepared. I made a cleric subclass. Like, this is happening, and I go from like 3 years ago to now. I'm like, how did I get here? I didn't like clowns.
I was going to say, because in the sort of the research that I do of like, checking out the catalog of like stuff, there was like a slight clowny trend that I didn't want to. I was just like, oh, this is just, it's nice. Now it's nice to hear the sort of the origin story behind how that sort of.
I mean, I won't work on clown stuff without Willie. So I mean, there might be. It's our relationship is clowns and dice, I guess.
It sounds like a solid foundation. I think I think many couples can kind of aspire to that sort of So interesting. And then I guess to sort of bring it around to your like individual like creative process then. So with like was it products like the hair of the dog? What's kind of like what was your creative process behind things like that? Or like again, sorry for those listening, what is the hair of the dog?
So Hair of the Dog is my first self-published adventure. I published it about a year ago. It is a story that is meant to tack on to, or it fits perfectly rather, with sort of the end of a Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. It is a reversed heist. It's a pulp action noir type. I just took all of the like heist criminal pulp tropes and tossed them in there. And it is about a phantom thief that the party is tasked with sort of protecting treasure from. And it features Vincent Trench. I won't spoil anything about the nature of Vincent Trench, but he's a prominent character that lives on the same street as the players in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. And I was very enamored by that character. Vincent Trench, when I play him, is every grizzled ex-cop with a heart of gold stereotype that you've ever seen, right? Like I imagine him as halfway between Zenigata from Lupin the Third and Kyle Hyde, if you've ever played Hotel Dusk, which is one of my favorite visual novels. And so I was like, I love this guy. I think it's really cool. And I was talking to one of my coworkers about it, and he was like, oh, you got to give him like some kind of rival. And that was just like the spark of like, oh, well, a rival of this nature needs to have, or a detective of this nature needs to have a rival of, this corresponding nature. And if you read a little bit about who Vincent Trench and the titular, I cannot speak today. Ooh, if you read a little bit more about the nature of Vincent Trench and the titular character, Hair of the Dog, you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I must admit. So I kind of like the Waterdeep Dragon Heist was like, it's just like one of the hardcover books I've just like latched onto. Yeah, and I don't know what it is. Like anytime I'm sort of writing an adventure, I do like think of like I could set this in Waterdeep. It would be very easy. And then it was I don't know. I just the flow of the book, and I think just it's offering the sort of different seasons. Kind of like. I think I just gravitate towards because it gives a lot of flexibility. I'm curious. So, did you feel any sort of like pressure? Like, I know that when I set things, at least like as a tie-in to Waterdeep Dragon Heist, I'm always like, do I need to make 4 different branches of this adventure? Just to sort of help it, or was it?
I mean, because I didn't tie the adventure to any of the major villains. And I didn't tie it to like a specific date or time or holiday in Waterdeep. I was just like, you could dump this wherever you want. I will say on the other side of the spectrum, the thing that I did feel a lot of pressure on was Waterdeep has such a storied history. And because it's such a popular city in the Forgotten Realms, everybody and their mother will know like the most extraneous piece of Waterdeep lore that is buried under years and years and years of people writing about it. So the pressure that I did feel was to make sure that every tiny detail about Waterdeep was at least made sense and at least fit into what everybody has been writing for the last who knows how many years. Like Zulper, the House Zulper, which is the quest giver, is a woman from House Zulper. I forget which house I was using before, but it like for some reason the dates just didn't add up. There's like documents of like the dates that all of the houses were active or wealthy or whatever, and it just like didn't make sense that in 1492 that house would have had enough money to pay the adventurer. So I was like, oh no, I need to find another. So I was up at like 2 a.m. a couple days before to release, like, which house am I going to use?
Yeah. No, I kind of have like a somewhat similar story of like falling down like the lore rabbit hole, I guess, is like where I was, again, it was a Waterdeep based adventure, but me and so I was doing a project with Ginny Loveday, and as we were sort of doing the research, we realized that there was an entire novel based on the kind of adventure premise that we had been working on, and we're like, how did we not know this novel existed? So we both were like, okay, we need to read a book. We need to like it can be like the weirdest of places, and sometimes you find like you have like 3 different PDFs open, each one from like a different like D&D edition that you
Mm-hmm.
I suppose sometimes the saving grace is, at least with Waterdeep, some of the last stuff is like it's set like 100 years ago. So sometimes you have that flexibility of like it's 100 years. We have some wiggle room. You know, it's the future now, Grandpa.
I would say one thing that does give me, because I mentioned that it's a lot of pressure, but it's only a lot of pressure because that is the exact kind of thing that I really love doing, is knowing that there's a story that I want to tell and making it fit within an existing universe. So, you know, I was doing a ton of research on Waterdeep, and I needed a place where Hera the dog would go as like the place where they go to get away, right? Like once they get the thing, if the players can't stop them from doing that, they have to escape. And I was like, I need a great place for them to meet up with their companions. Where should they go? And you know, what terrible disaster should befall everybody there, because you know this is a D&D adventure that just snowballs and spirals. And I found the fact about why Waterdeep's City of the Dead have walls around it, because I didn't know, and I don't know if they actually mention that, or they at least don't mention it enough in the back of Dragon Heist. But it's because of the zombies, and their solution is not to like go in and, you know, have a cleric there and purify all the graves. They're just like, no, every 50 years we're just going to keep building the walls higher and not let anybody in there.
And I suppose it's weird as well to see that like there's occasionally you imagine there would be funerals happening in the City of the Dead, that they'll just like just keep the zombies over there for a little bit, just until we can get the body in the ground, and then just
Yeah, I just like it completely baffles me that in a world where like there is a cleric to presumably every god in Waterdeep.
Yeah.
I live in New York, so or I live close to New York, and I professionally DM here, and I always use Waterdeep as the starting city for my players, because I'm like, it's fantasy New York City, and it's fantasy a lot of places, but they know that, they understand that. So in like my perception of like, okay, if this is fantasy New York City, there's probably a cleric for literally every god under the sun, and you're telling me that you can't rid this graveyard of zombies?
all the priests of Lathander are busy like polishing the spires in the morning. They just don't have time for it. It needs to be shiny for the next morning, otherwise. No, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm also kind of like, I do enjoy navigating the. Yeah, it feels like a reverse puzzle. It feels like you have a puzzle with like a missing piece that you just have to like somehow slot in nicely. And when you finally like, there's those gifs online of like the perfectly satisfying thing when everything sort of clicks together. When you can sit back and be like, nice, it's kind of all falls into place. Nice. And then so I guess so that particular adventure kind of sparked from just like I imagine sparked from one of your tables, hearing about like, you know, a character that you naturally gravitated towards, that you would like, okay, well they need a nemesis. Is that generally kind of how like the rest of your ideas kind of?
Honestly, I run games professionally here. Some of them I run out of a book, and a lot of them are homebrew campaigns. So I just need like a well of ideas for what's going to happen next. And sometimes I can turn to the DMsGuild and be like, all right, I'm gonna take this Feywild adventure, and I'm gonna take this Saltmarsh adventure and run with it. And other times I'm like, oh no, this is a very specific scenario that I need to create for, you know, in the next 3 hours before the session happens. And so sometimes a lot of my ideas happen because out of necessity, you know, like procrastination, inspiration. But I also have like a weird backlog of adventure hooks and things that I'd like to write. And that is kind of what I use as my encounter sparks for my tables. And then if I like them enough, I'll make them into adventures. And the way that I get those is actually kind of fun.
Oh.
Um, so when the DMs Guild started doing their Design Dash show, I was like, this is cool. This is the funnest thing I've ever seen in my life, you know, and like being forced to have an idea in 15 minutes is a painful but necessary exercise for me. And I showed it to this Discord server that I have. This is made up of like all of my friends from like college and all of Willie's friends from home, and you know, sort of our like local group here, who are interested in sort of the mechanics of tabletop RPGs and creating and publishing their own content. We kind of have the center is on that. The Discord server is called the Demon Web Shit Pit because I loved LOLF and I needed a name. And
sorry, I was gonna say, loved is it not still ongoing? Like I didn't know LOLF was so free.
Yeah, no, we're right now, me and LOLF. You know, it comes and it goes. It's fine. If she's allowed to change her mind on everything, then so am I. But yeah, so the Demon Web Shit Pit caught wind of the Design Dash, and they were like, "That's cool. We want to do that." So usually we used to do it once every 2 weeks, but now we're doing it like once a month because everybody is weirdly busy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Everybody has so many Zoom calls to get to at night now.
Yeah.
But we have our own version of Design Dash that we call the crapshoot. And we'll like find one of those like 365 writing prompts for creative writers articles online. We'll roll a die and we'll pick a prompt, and then we basically all have 15 minutes to design. So I have like this backlog of adventures that I really, really hope make the light of day on the DMsGuild someday, because some of them are wild. Yeah, it's been super helpful.
No, interesting. Like, yeah, no, there is something about like the sort of like I guess forced creativity, or just like, again, was it they say restrictions, kind of like just having that thing of just I need to get something down. Like you have no time to think, and therefore you just create diamonds. You just sort of throw it all. No, interesting. Yeah, no, I it's always the case of like I always watched like the Design Dash. I've never really thought about like playing along at home. Like, and I don't know, maybe that's something that's next time it comes around, like the next month, just play along, see how it turns out.
It's so cool, even just to see like when you watch Design Dash and you go and chat, like how many different directions different people's minds can go in when they hear the same idea is so like that to me, just seeing that one split second spark after Lisa says the prompt is the ultimate killer of that idea of like there are no new ideas, because there's hundreds of them in chat right now, and that like even just seeing the different ways that people can take one idea is so inspiring to me.
And actually, was it so? Speaking of the Design Dash, how was your experience with it? You as a
it's very stressful. Like I said, the painful but necessary exercise for me. No, I had a lot of fun on Design Dash. I think it's fantastic. I think everyone that I got to play with both rounds were just super creative and super fun to be around. And I just like, I really like that the DMsGuild community can get together and do fun stuff like that all the time. This is like, been on the internet a long time, but this is like one of my favorite internet communities to be a part of, simply because we do get to do goofy stuff like that.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, and yeah, again, yeah, it's yeah. I was gonna think of like some summarizing statement, but there isn't one, so I'll just say yeah. So I guess again, fantastic sort of like idea generation, and then just turning stuff into. It feels like, especially when it comes to like preparing for a session, it can sometimes feel like the Wallace and Gromit train with you're putting the train tracks as the train goes. But sometimes those ideas, they can eventually end up with like being fully fledged whole things on the DMsGuild. And I think everyone kind of has those sort of like small Word documents that just need, it just needs a little polishing, and then that polishing turns into like a 2, maybe 3 month project.
Oh no, that's never happened before.
But I'm curious, is there any particular part of like, from start to finish, what is your favorite part? Like, hands down.
I have two favorite parts. My first favorite part is pre-writing, and I never thought that those are words that would ever come out of my mouth. In school, you know, when they teach you how to write an essay every year, I don't know if the British school system is like this, but in the American school system, they teach you how to write an essay in the same way from basically first grade to 12th grade. You know, they're like, and now you have to do the pre-writing stage and the outline with the T method of writing the outline. And it's like, well, I know how to do this. I know how to write. I don't need to pre-write. I know what I want to say, and I'm going to put it on the page. And so as a very defiant person who was very sure about what they wanted to say for, you know, at least those 12 distinct years of my life, I hated pre-writing. And then I did the RPG Writers Workshop. And Ashley Warren, God bless her, was like, you just can't. You can't write an adventure without rewriting. You need an outline. And even before you need an outline, you need to get into it. Like for Hair of the Dog, I thought I had a really, really successful pre-writing process. I made the Pinterest board. I had a Spotify playlist. I watched Willie play Sly Cooper. I read like 4 different books. I read La Clamora. I read a couple of Sherlock Holmes stories. We watched Lupin the Third because of course we did. So I like consumed all the media that I thought was reflective of the story I wanted to write. I created a visual and an auditory sound and mood board for myself. And a lot of these touchstones throughout the entire process were things that I could return to throughout the entire process and sort of spark that like, oh yeah, I loved that moment. When you're in the trenches of actually writing the project, you're like, why do I ever make words? This is terrible. This doesn't make any sense. So having your pre-writing work, which is work, even if it's fun, to turn back to throughout the whole process is fantastic, and I love it. And I also love how an outline basically gives you permission to have terrible ideas. You know, you can just say, I'm gonna put this on the outline now, and you know what, maybe later I can think of something better. And I typically do. You know, I'll write an outline, and a week later I'm like, Leon, why did you? No. So, you know, they say perfect is the enemy of good, and having the right idea is the enemy of having any idea at all. So that's why I like pre-writing, is it gives me permission to just get everything out before I have to judge myself too hard. And the second part of a project that I really like, should come as no surprise, I like playtesting. I would say like 50% of my ideas, or 50% of what ends up in an adventure comes forward as a result of playtesting. I will, when I run my adventure for the first time, an adventure that I'm meaning to publish, I run it off of the outline. I don't write it. And a lot of it is like, the players can do this. What happens next? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And I actually do use that fear of needing to say something to force myself to make a decision at the table. And so, you know, I find that my players will be able to point out, like, what happens if we do this? And what happens if we do that? And I'm able to craft a more natural path for an adventure after I run it, if that makes any sense.
I mean, yeah, no, it's the same way of like, you know, just taking a session of notes and then turning that into adventure. It's the same sort of principle. Yep. It's like it's already tried and tested in a way that you know that at least there's some sort of inherent flow and there's no sort of like roadblocks. There's nothing worse than taking like an adventure that you've written all the way through, you bring it to your players, and then there's immediately like a roadblock that had you kind of just, you know, started from like at least something playable, like, so, not to say it wouldn't be playable, but no, it's, yeah. And I'm curious, so from the sort of playtesting you did with like the Book of House, has that kind of same methodology continued like throughout, or have you kind of like varied the way you do your playtesting?
I think, so me personally, I like to see the results of my playtesting. I feel like sometimes, unless it's people that I know and that I trust, no offense to anyone who likes to playtest that might be listening to me, I always worry that like they won't look for the things that I'm looking for. So whether I'm sitting there watching the game or playing through it or running it, usually, I'm a bit of a control freak if you haven't noticed. I like to see it. I know that one of my gray areas is I really need to get better about sending my adventure material to someone else and having them run it. That's something that I've never really done. I've never had the time to do, but that's something that I want to start doing. And I know that Willie is very different, where he's just like, I'm going to send this material and I'll see what somebody else sends back to me. So we're very different. So sort of our mechanics playtesting has branched more towards the way of Willie, where like he will send a race for a subclass or something over to, people who hit him up on Twitter. And I'm the one who, like, I'll take a week and everybody who plays D&D with me that week will hear, okay, so I wrote another monster of a thing. Like, we're going to take this behemoth and try to make it have fun. Yeah. And they like that, I think. I hope my players like when I do that to them.
I mean, as long as they keep coming back, I suppose that's a good sign. No, it's interesting because, yeah, I think I must admit, so the kind of the playtesting I've done with my adventures has either been I've run it myself or I've sent it off, and I've only started sending off with like my last two kind of finished things, and it's a weird experience because it's the case of it's completely out of your hands now. I'm fascinated about having the opportunity to sit in and play one of my adventures with like a different DM. I'm not, again, from like from a scientific standpoint, it does feel like you're tampering the results. But as just a silent observer, just playing a character that is just low intelligence and just kind of very much go with the flow, is probably.
I think, it would be cheating, but I think what would happen there is, like, if there's something that, like, I don't know what would happen if, what if the players did this? What would happen? Sometimes I'm like, you know what? That's on the DM. Like, adventures can't account for all of that. But if it seems like something that is glaringly obvious and I don't know the answer, I'm a terrible person. I'd probably be like, hey, somebody want to run this for me? And then I would do it to them and see what happens.
Yeah, in fairness, yeah, no, there is, again, I suppose if adventures were designed to be like have every contingency plan, each adventure would be like 100 pages.
Impossible to read.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I suppose at some point you have to be like, okay, this is on you. I've given you a car, I've given you the keys, where you go and how it, if you lose a wheel halfway through, that's, you're gonna have to work with that. Interesting. And then I'm curious because you mentioned as well that you do like a fair bit of editing for just general content. Is there any part of like an editing project that you particularly enjoy?
Oh. So my favorite part of editing is that it's made me a much better designer. I'm like, not like I'm stealing your trade secrets when I edit your work for anybody who might have had me as an editor. But I definitely do get to absorb a lot of what I read, how people approach problems, how people approach laying out of information. Because when I started writing adventures, we have like all of the 5e hardcovers in the house. So like that was really my template for like, all right, adventure should use this wording, adventure should do that. And I had some adventures on the DMsGuild, but not really. When you're just starting out, you really don't know where to look, you don't know where to go. So one of the things that honestly I think made me a better designer was starting editing these for like collaborative projects like the Book of Seasons or Table for Two, and getting to see how other people handle certain problems, how other people handle certain stories. It's just been like super, super helpful. And I know that even if you can't steal their ideas and write on the DMsGuild. I mean, legally you can because of the DMsGuild, but you shouldn't because that's a terrible thing to do. Yeah. But I definitely do like read some of these ideas or story hooks and go, oh, well that, I want to use that, maybe not that idea, but that certain, that concept in my home game. I remember I was editing Pretty Little Liches for Zeke, Zeke Gonzalez, and Pretty Little Liches is some of the best, if you don't mind me saying, tier 4 content that I've seen. I love it.
Yeah.
And there's this Skull Lord that's a random encounter that you can see before you even get to the dungeon. And as I was editing that stuff, I was like, huh, Skull Lord. And I think like editing Zeke stuff incepted me, because now every chance I get, I'm like, I'm putting a Skull Lord in, and he's gonna be he's gonna be a comedic character, but he's gonna be able to kick your ass because he's a Skull Lord. So yeah, I definitely do carry pieces of the work that I edit with me as a dungeon master.
Oh, I 100%. I think one of the most creative things that I've picked up from like reading other people's adventures is just the creative use of certain creatures. I'm so blurry. We're sorry, I'm out of focus. Allow me to. I've gone to the blurry realm. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Hey, there we go. As I was saying, the creative ways in which people take seemingly not mundane creatures, but like the environments in which they put creatures that give them a whole new life, or again, just skull lords. Just
that's all you need.
That's all you need. No,
and
yeah.
Real quick, because you can get a lot of that stuff by just reading, but as someone who, the way that I learn is very much like taking in information and then like making it my own or working with it. Editing really offers me an opportunity to because I actually do have to actively engage with the stuff that I'm reading and ask myself, like, does this make sense? Is this consistent? Is it, are the mechanics there? And now I realized I made myself sound a little bit like a leech, like, let me edit your content, increase my power level. But please let me edit your content and increase my power level.
Yeah. I just imagine like you've got like a trophy ward of like all the people you've edited for, and you just have like a fraction of their power in like small jars.
A little bit. That's shh, don't tell me.
It's fine. It's fine. I have a short-term memory anyway. No, interesting. And then I guess like to flip the coin on the other side then, for both your creative process and then when it comes to editing, are there distinct like least favorite parts that you have?
Yeah. So I think my least favorite part of editing is like I like to edit in cycles or passes. So like I'll edit once, and then I'll let the author make revisions, and then I'll edit a second time, and then typically my third time is the copy editing pass. And somewhere around like halfway through the second time or the third time, I'm like, I've read this at least 4 times, because you got to go over things over and over. And I'm like, I start to lose steam a little bit. So that kind of like middle of the road editing part where I'm like, oh, I don't want to look at this text anymore. It's good text, but I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
Just, this is kind of a boring answer, but my least favorite part of like any project is actually doing the work. When you have your outline and you're like, I know what I want it to say, and then the outline is like, and stuff goes here, and you're like, oh, I have to write. Yeah, that's I like writing, I really do, but it's probably the most boring part to me. I like having the ideas and fixing them and making them better. So that I kind of cheat by like, I pretend that writing is actually editing, which I kind of like push the writing off to outlining. And if I can iterate on that outline enough, then writing actually is just editing, which is the part that I enjoy.
No, I suppose that's the rare benefit of being both the writer and editor in one. That you get to almost cheat the system. No, I know. I kind of 100% kind of agree with that sort of like sentiment, because sometimes like I quite like skeleton doing the skeleton of the document. I was trying to make skeleton a verb, which again, I think this is why I need an editor. But yeah, and then there are like chunks where like my brain is always kind of like brimming with ideas that I'm kind of exciting to sort of think. But then there are the sort of like the sections that you just like, again, for an adventure to flow, you sometimes need the dips, and you still have to write the dips. So it's trying to like push through and be like, okay, well, no, I just need to write how, like, when you return to this character, what they say, and what they give you. They give you like 3 gold and take you to jog on or whatever it is.
Oh, you just reminded me of my actual worst favorite part. Least favorite part of any creative project, which is coming up with names. I can't do it.
Is there like names of the whole project or just like character names?
Anything. Naming anything is so. I have so many placeholders. I have so many Bobs, so many character A's. Shout out to Emily, I think that's her name, who runs fantasynamegenerators.com, because she has saved my life so many times. Or whatever Emily's pronouns are. There's an inside joke with all of my my D&D groups where I will introduce a character, right? And it could be a guard, it could be like somebody who's working behind the counter at the library. Like, they're not supposed to have a name. And then all of a sudden the players start talking to this person, and then they go, oh yeah, by the way, what's your name? Which happens to every dungeon master. And I just look at them and I go, it's fantasynamegenerators.com. So there's just a lot of people named namegenerators.com running around my version of Faerun.
No, I must admit, that's fantasy generators. I use that. That's how I get my names 9 times. Like, it's a case of like where you get the list of 10 names, and then you feel like you have a little bit more agency by mix and mashing. Like, you take one half of one name and then one half, and then you're just like, there you go. I'm creative rather than just. No, but I mean, it's a fantastic tool, and again, it's sort of the people who do like that, and with it Kobold Fight Club, though, like the people who like put the work in and sort of develop those tools. Or one thing I really like to use is there's a forum post out there where someone has listed all the ideals, bonds, and traits. And I just again, when I'm writing, I always go back to that document, because when I write characters, I like to see, all these, and it's things like that you just speed up the development process significantly. And these people are like unsung heroes of I imagine, like the DM's Guild.
Absolutely, yeah. I should really add Emily to the special thanks of everything I've ever published.
Yeah, no, I at this point, I think I feel obligated to double check to see if they have like a Ko-fi or like a donation point, because at this point, they should be getting royalties, like for the number of names.
Yes, they should. Oh my God.
So yeah, this special episode goes to Emily, and
Nice.
or just the unofficial sponsor for this podcast.
I'll steal names from William Shakespeare, and then I'll know. People will be like, Leon, you can't name all of your characters after Shakespearean characters. I'm like, oh, watch me. Or I lucked out for Book of Seasons. I wrote an adventure for the fall, and I live in New Jersey, so I wrote about the New Jersey Devil. And so most of the characters that I put in the adventure already have names, right? Mother Leeds, Jim Leeds, her son, the Jersey Devil. And then everyone else I just named after like people I knew, or bastardizations of the names of musicians who lived in New Jersey. So there's an orc named Jovi.
I mean, again, if it works, it works. Like 9 times out of 10, it's like the case of where, like, if you're playing at the average table, goes by unnoticed, but like 1 out of 10 times there'll be someone like it's a pun name. I didn't. And I'll be honest, I live for those moments. They no, fantastic. And then I guess to summarize everything across, like you from when you started to like where you are now, are there any sort of like particular lessons in both like writing yourself or editing yourself that you kind of wish you'd learned earlier? Or
yes. I think that I'm super proud of the work that Willie and I did on the Book of House, but we released that book and then we joined the DMsGuild community, so to speak. We were just like, we downloaded a couple things off the guild. We used our own network of playtesters and friends to help us do all the designing, and the art budget on that book, I don't even want to talk about. Really was just like, we need good art. The book won't sell if we don't have good art, and I love the art in that book, but I feel like a lot of the mistakes that we made with the Book of House, we absolutely would have been able to avoid if we had gotten involved with the community sooner. Like, even if I'm not very active on the Discord, I lurk a lot on the Discord, and I learn a lot just from reading, or even being a part of the Facebook group, or following everybody on Twitter. I've learned a lot of lessons that I definitely probably could have stood to learn a little bit earlier, right? Like, there's royalty-free art out there if you know where to look. Yeah. There's, where you could just get stock art. You don't have to commission, every single piece for your book, although it's good art, but we do not have to do that. Everybody needs an editor. That's another important piece of advice. Like, just because I'm a writer and an editor, I would never, ever want to release a product that somebody else didn't at least take a look at. Mm-hmm. Hair of the Dog was released as part of the RPG Writer Workshop program, so that, like, everybody swaps drafts and sort of trades them around for editing. So I got to, I got a couple people's eyes on mine, and then I got to look at other people's, and that was obviously a fun part of the process for me. I don't know why I like to edit so much. I'm a busybody. But, like, yeah, if you're gonna submit an adventure or a large scale project, I think that my biggest piece of advice, and it sounds like I'm advertising, but I'm really not. You need an editor. You need somebody to make sure that everything makes sense, because you expect the words that you're going to read. So it's always going to be confirmation bias. And even now, when I look back at some of the things that I submitted without an editor, months later, because I'm a different person now, I'm so disgusted, right? I have I'll call myself out. I released the core problem in March after I was on the design dash. And it was literally just like, I will clean this up and, add it as a pay what you want as an advertisement for me, because I was on Design Dash, and, everybody pay attention to me. Yeah. And so I had a treant sapling as this little, stat block that you could, this is a companion for your party. And I looked at it recently, and I noticed that the hit die for this tiny creature was a D12. And I was like, Leon, why did you do that? Yeah. And if, like, I had any editor would have been like, Leon, there's a tiny creature. You can't, it's not. But you just sometimes you just don't know what you're doing. So that's my PSA. Everybody needs an editor. Everybody needs, not everybody needs custom commissioned art for every single page of your stuff, and get involved with the community, because everybody really likes talking. If you could tell from the last hour.
Well, no, I was going to say, so across, was it? I think this is like, I was about to say how many episodes I've done, but at this point I don't know. I think it's like 36, 37. I think hands down, the one of the most common things is people saying, yeah, I kind of wish I got an editor earlier. But I think at this point, like, if I were ever to do merch of this podcast, it would just be get an editor. And it's yeah. I mean, I made the same mistake with, like, my first product, or my first thing out, is because I think what it is like, it takes putting a project out there to then realize that there is this whole community about it. And it was a case of, like, I threw something out there, didn't have an editor, and then I joined the community. I got involved, and I was like, oh no, this is, now I have this kind of, I get not a blemish. I'm quite proud of my first product, but you know what I mean. It's like the standards, just by the minimum of getting an editor, or just seeing what kind of art is out there. It's small things that just, like, really bump up the quality, the overall quality of a product, kind of.
Absolutely. And I do want to caveat that by saying like, if it's just like a quick subclass or an adventure, like normally I'm like, that's you do you. But if this is like a large project, if you're adding like a bunch of new options and it's like 15 plus pages and a bunch of people are working on it, sometimes I'll see those teams who don't have an editor and I'm like, why? You need one.
Yeah, please, just get an editor. Again, it's always a case like, it doesn't have to be me. I know so many other editors. It just isn't.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it also makes you a better writer when you have the chance to work with an editor. A lot of the things that I learned about adventure writing were from TK Johnson, who was my editor for my Uncaged anthology, being like, Leon, you can't do it like this. Here's a suggestion. Or Kat Evans editing my stuff for the Book of Seasons. So I love getting to work with an editor because it makes me a better writer too.
Oh yeah, hands down. You know what? One project I'm going to get 2 editors just to treat myself. Because it can either be like the best outcome or the worst outcome. But I don't know. I'm willing to experiment. So I guess looking to the future and talking about the community as a whole, then do you have like a particular like dream project or something that's kind of far off in the distance, or
a dream project? So my dream project that I just like, I don't know if I'll ever have the time or the energy to do. I really want to make sort of 8 more adventures along the lines of Hair of the Dog. And this is the point where you might want to mute me because I am going to spoil the identity of Vincent Trench now. Vincent Trench is a Rakshasa, which is a tiger fiend. And yeah, with backwards hands, he's the coolest. But what I really want to do is I want to make a series called The 9 Lives of Vincent Trench. And they are progressively sort of for higher tier adventurers after Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So if you get the gold or you do whatever, you finish the adventure and you don't want to leave Waterdeep, you could just keep living in Waterdeep and play these adventures, and each one would feature an old alias of Vincent Trench with a different tragic backstory every time. So it's just like when you see him be that noir, somebody hurt me a long time ago, ex-cop type character, and you're like, who hurt you? He takes out a list and it just unfolds. It's like all these people.
And the sort of branching it again. That sounds like an amazing project line. I'm hooked. That's just because I suppose what is it? At the end of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, you do have the option of Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is it's not really Waterdeep anymore. It's a whole one.
It's a dungeon. It's Whiplash at that point, because you go from maybe you'll see 1 or 2 dungeons in the entirety of Dragon Heist, and then your campaign becomes Oops All Dungeons. Which is one of the main reasons why I didn't transition to to Mad Mage after Dragon Heist, because I was like, my players are not going to like this. No. Even the amount, we went to Ghosts of Saltmarsh next, and even the amount of dungeons there, I was just like, oh, they might be getting a little fatigued.
Yeah. But no. Again, and so with the 9 lives. Would it be including Hair of the Dog as
and the dog
no yeah well yeah no yeah I was about to say you're obligated to do it now, but I think that's a little bit presumptuous. No, that would be I can't imagine the undertaking that would be to commit yourself to 8 adventures, but
that's why.
Yeah, the prospect is interesting at the very least. Or nice. So, a poor segue aside, looking at the community as a whole, then you mentioned that again being involved in so many sort of collaborative projects, as well as being I guess a partner in crime with Willie. I don't know if how accurate that would be. is other, like, who are some of the people in the DMs Guild community, or beyond, that kind of like continually inspires you?
It's a good question. I think that everybody probably says Lisa Penrose and that it's cheating at this point, but Lisa is super inspiring to me. I would say Ashley Warren, absolutely. Ashley Warren is the type of person who will tweet something and be like, I think I will do this today. And then like a year later, she's won awards for it. But like in a way that lifts everybody up around her, which is just the power that Ashley Warren has is incredible. Not just to accomplish the things that she wants, but to empower other people to accomplish the things that they want. And then I think the last person would be Laura Hersbrunner. We're both editors. I look up to Laura a lot.
No, again, I was about to say I can't argue, but I'm never one to argue on like who's inspirational. Like, hands down, like in particular, like all three of them have kind of done their parts to kind of like rise the tides with them. Obviously, was it Laura did the amazing word template, which is getting some amazing use. Ashley obviously doing the RPG writer workshop, which is entering its second year, and like every year it's just growing. And just Lisa just amazing. Like we couldn't have got a better like community manager than.
Absolutely, yeah. They're all just fantastic people.
No. Again, I like this question because it gives me the warm fuzzies. It's just a nice sort of feeling. And then looking at the time, I think we are kind of coming to like the end of our lot of time. But just to give like a sneak peek to the future, then, what are some of the things that you're working on at the moment, and more importantly, where can we sort of hear about them?
So a couple things I'm probably not allowed to talk about, but I can't. Yeah, I can talk about this now. So not DMsGuild related. I am currently working on an adventure for NCDM's new Patreon exclusive magazine.
Yes.
So thank you. I'm so excited about that. I am also going to be writing one of the adventure outlines for Fantastic Lairs, which was a Kickstarter project a couple months ago.
I believe, what was it? It was a stretch goal that got you involved.
Yeah, a lot of really, really cool writers on those stretch goals. And for DMsGuild stuff, Willie and I are working on more clown stuff.
Nice.
I actually can talk about this because this is my project, so I can't say what. I have a puzzle dungeon. I'm sad that the name Funhouse Dungeon is taken because it's not actually a funhouse dungeon, but it is a dungeon that operates like a funhouse, and it is an old Clonish ruin dedicated to all of the Clonish gods. And each room is a puzzle that you kind of have to work through. And when you clear all the puzzles, you are introduced to a new god from the Clonish pantheon who is not covered in the Book of House.
Wow. No, I think what I also love about the idea of like a puzzle dungeon is the fact that it lends itself to like just being like a collection of puzzles that other DMs can sort of just like say, oh, I like this puzzle. That's exciting. There isn't. Yeah, there's not much puzzle content out there, so that's going to be really exciting on that.
I would say the word puzzle is used rather loosely, and you probably wouldn't want to take them out of here because if you divorce them from the context of this is about clowns, people would probably.
Yeah, no, I suppose that's fair. Yeah, I suppose the clown runs deep in this one.
They are definitely puzzles in the way that like you're not going to be able to solve this by like taking your axe out and swinging it. Well, there's one room where you could do that, but the rest of them,
as long as there's one, you just need one to keep the resident barbarian or fighter happy, and then you've got all your boxes. and then so like it's the best way to like follow you on Twitter, or like where's the best way to hear about this?
So my Twitter is the best place to follow me, at Barillaro. You could find me probably on any social media that I have. I have claimed the username Barillaro. I also have a website that I update, once every 14 months, Brilliant.com. And then the blog, which is brilliant.com/blog, which updates much more regularly than the actual website.
Well, like I said, they'll at the very least there'll be links to your DMsGuild profile and like your Twitter below, but we can throw all of those in the doobly-doo or as. But no, again, Leon, thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat. This time's flown by. This has been really good.
So fun.
Yeah. Was it? I've been Matthew Whitby. You can find me at Whitby Writes. I think at this point I'm getting vaguely close to releasing an adventure. Again, I'm trying to predict 2 weeks ahead, or like a non-disclosed amount of time ahead. I don't want to reveal how much of a backlog I have, but there may be a link in the description. There may not be. It's a mystery. But my final question, then, my closing question: how do we end a podcast?
I just started listening to podcasts. And my favorite podcasts have a really cool outro jingle.
Oh.
And I didn't write one. I figured we could write one.
Write one together. I think it's like I like the do. So just thank you for coming. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.